Well, thank you so much, everyone. I am really excited to be here with you today. As you just saw, we have a lot going on in the city. And what you saw is only a sampling of the projects that are currently underway. First off, I'd like to thank Vestar and Harkins for welcoming us all here today. This is the first time, oh yeah, please. This is the first time we've hosted an event at their beautiful veranda and inside this new theater. I don't know about you, but I definitely love these comfortable seats. And I can tell you from standing up here, the sound in here is absolutely incredible. Tempe Marketplace is so much more than a mall to our community. This is an excellent example of how business and government can work together for the benefit of everyone. The land we are on right now was once a county island. It was declared a Superfund site back in the 1980s. Vestar and the city of Tempe partnered together to annex the land, garner federal grants, remediate the land, and build new roads. And together, we created the amazing mall we are all enjoying here today. The economic impact of this mall goes beyond the retail and entertainment. It has spurred neighboring developments, such as Rio 2100, with its 5 office buildings, 2 hotels, restaurant space, and a 350-unit apartment complex. It also has helped with the resurrection of the Smith Hub, just to the south of the mall, where several older buildings are being adapted, restored, and redeveloped. Thanks to David for his vision, which has so positively impacted our community. Today, we're working to annex additional county island land in North Tempe. And really quickly, I'm looking over at Councilmember Jennifer Adams, who's been leading that effort here for the city of Tempe. Thank you, Councilmember Adams. So while that land isn't a Superfund site, we know that it holds greater uses for our city and for our region. Banyan North Tempe is the latest success story. This mixed-use project is already under construction, bringing 650 new apartments and retail to the area. I'd like to thank Michael Gossi and Arizona Big Media for hosting this event today. They really have their hand on the pulse on business and development in Greater Phoenix, and for them to choose Tempe as the location of their first Fueling the Economy event is quite an honor. And I'd also like to thank the experts joining us today. You represent 3 vital areas of our economy. Your thoughts on coming trends are valuable, and we sincerely appreciate your time. Today, I'd like to talk about how development, business, and housing are all interconnected. This has been a cornerstone of my tenure as mayor of Tempe, and we've accomplished a lot already, but I haven't done this alone. Once again, I'm going to say, joining me today here is Councilmember Jennifer Adams. She and the entire city council that you see on this screen right now have been instrumental in making our city the best place possible. We are benefactors of decades of remarkable vision, planning, and innovation. From the creation of Tempe Town Lake, which opened up 7 miles of development opportunities, to light rail and now Tempe streetcar, to our longstanding relationship with ASU on science, development, and education, to our partnerships with the 4 Southern tribes that bring us together to work collaboratively toward respectful future developments. The changes in Tempe over the last 2 decades have been both fast-moving and deliberate, and planned, and still surprising in that way when you look around and go, wow, with a sense of satisfaction. Change is inevitable, but in Tempe, we choose our own evolution. If you haven't been to Tempe in the last 10 years or so, it might look pretty different to you. We've grown. In the last 10 years, we've added more than $3.6 billion of mixed-use, commercial, and industrial development. 120 million of that is just in the first 5 months of this year. If you were here 15 years ago, you'd be witnessing the construction of Tempe's inaugural light rail line, the development of Tempe Marketplace, and the birth of West 6th, what many would call Tempe's first high-rise. Now we have 100 Mill, which is home to Amazon, Deloitte, and other household names. There's the new Canopy Hotel, the 23-story Olive Apartments, Tempe Gateway, where Allstate has offices, the new George Oliver project at Hayden Station, and of course, State Farm at Marina Heights on Tempe Town Lake. So while we might be landlocked, we are definitely still growing. South Pier is our largest lakeside opportunity. Throughout the next 15 years, this project will bring significant mixed use, residential, office, and retail development. And at completion, we should see 2,700 new jobs and $317 million in annual economic impact. Beyond that, the project is providing $25 million in public amenities. The Hayden Flour Mill, our most historic landmark, could soon offer new locations for local retail and restaurants, offices, and entertainment. We are in the process of building out the Farmer Arts District. The new Best Western Vibe just opened across the street, and the Beam is opening soon. Dwell, new workforce apartments, are opening at Farmer Arts as well. And I'm glad that we have representatives of all of those projects right here today. There are more than 250 projects in our development pipeline right now. You can see them all online. Another area poised for more transformation, though, is Apache Boulevard. What you see today is completely different than it was a decade ago. It had been an area of higher crime, of older, smaller buildings, but during light rail's construction, we rezoned much of the land in order to prepare for what we knew would become a popular destination for retail and residential. Since that time, we've seen the inclusion of thousands of new apartments, such as Rise on Apache, Nexa, and the District, as well as affordable housing communities like Gracie's Village and River on Eastline. There are many new restaurants, too, like one of my favorite places, the Hudson Eatery. And we are continuing to invest in the future. A vital part of that is accelerating housing opportunities with Hometown for All. Following the traditions of mayors who've come before me, I'm working along with the City Council to solve the issues of the next generation while also helping residents of today. And as you all know, there is a national housing shortage. What some might not understand is how that impacts our economy. If we want to attract top companies, we all need to support affordable and workforce housing efforts. Having a solid inventory of affordable housing helps everyone. We're in an economy right now where job seekers can choose where they want to work. Employees in all professions want to work close to home. It saves time and, of course, precious gas. If you don't have enough workforce housing, you can't attract top-tier talent. Businesses will locate where they can find the best and most plentiful workforce, the best schools, and a high quality of life for their employees. Greater Phoenix is now the 18th most expensive housing market in the country, with a 21% increase in housing prices in the last year. That is going to impact our national desirability to larger companies. So the question, of course, becomes, what are we going to do about it? As many of you in this room know, Arizona has a number of challenges that impact the growth of affordable and workforce housing, largely due to legislative preemptions that don't exist in a lot of other states. The lack of inclusionary zoning, the lack of a tax increment financing system, and the inability to implement rent control. But in Tempe, we don't get paid to talk about what we can't do, but instead what we can do. One way we're going to do that is focusing on our innovative affordable housing initiative called Hometown for All. So before I became mayor, the City Council commissioned a study that showed that we needed to add 11,000 more affordable housing units by the year 2040 just to keep pace with current demand. That's an ambitious goal, and we knew we needed to accelerate our efforts. We already had great working relationships with nonprofit and development partners that allowed us to realize amazing projects like Valor on 8th and affordable housing community for veterans. But what we envisioned was creating a sustainable funding stream to preserve and expand affordable and workforce housing, and frankly, have more control over the pace of growth of those housing opportunities. And that, my friends, is how Hometown for All was born. With the support of the council, we also saw the need to boost our efforts. We launched this initiative a little over a year ago. And to date, it has already brought in over $6 million to support more housing opportunities through cash received, projected permitting fees, and pledges of voluntary contributions from the development community. I truly believe, as does the entire City Council, that Hometown for All could be a model for all other Valley cities. But here's how it works. For every development project built in Tempe, an amount equivalent to 50% of certain permitting fees paid to the city's general fund goes to support the nonprofit Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing. In addition, we updated our guidance for voluntary contributions from developers to fund more affordable housing. Suggested donation amounts are based on the expected amount of certain developer-paid permitting fees, which equates to 20% for residential projects and 10% for commercial or office projects. This initiative has truly galvanized our affordable and workforce housing strategies. Not only have we added a vital new housing funding source through Hometown for All, but we are also making other investments that again put us in the driver's seat to increase housing opportunities in our city. We are also reimagining city-owned properties. Along Apache Boulevard alone, we've put in $1.2 million into critical site preparation work to get 4 parcels shovel-ready for development. Concept plans could collectively add 500 new affordable units in Tempe. We are purchasing single-family homes, apartments, and condos that will remain permanently affordable. There are more than 100 properties under city management today. And we are investing in the future with purchases like the former Food City Plaza at Apache and Dorsey and the Roadway Inn Motel, both of which will greatly expand affordable multifamily housing options. We're here today to talk about fueling the economy in Tempe through development, hospitality, and housing. But I would add a fourth: community. Development, business, housing, and community are all critically linked. And one does not thrive without the others. We see that every day in Tempe through the work of so many of you here. We see it in a lakeside development with housing, hotel, office space, and attractions. We see it downtown with 18 stories of business and employment opportunities. We see it along the Apache Boulevard corridor with live-work apartments for creatives in our city. We see it around the table at a favorite local restaurant, along a crowded marathon route, up and down a street festival, through the window of a light rail train. This interconnectivity is what makes Tempe, Tempe. And it's what brings us all here today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of our panelists about how they are helping to fuel the economy in the city of Tempe. Thank you.
My name is Maria Lochner. I'm with City of Tempe Economic Development. So with us, first of all, we have David Krimwitty, who's the Senior Executive Vice President for LPC Desert West. Then we have Charlie Freerichs, Senior Vice President for Catellus, and George Forstall, Director of Real Estate Development with Mortensen. So you all just heard the mayor, there's so much going on in Tempe. It's crazy. Your mind spins. It's so exciting all of the time. 250 projects currently on the runway. It's crazy. But I think it's fair to say, and we're up here to tell you about it, that development is not all rosy. There are some challenges. So, first question, I'm going to direct it to Charlie. All of us get a chance to answer, but Charlie, you're first on this one. We have all experienced supply chain issues, whether we're at the grocery store or we're making a mid-rise development. I can't even get business cards because they're on back order. It's crazy. How do supply chain issues affect retail development in particular?
Well, the supply chain issues are affecting everything. Let's start with that. I have the misfortune of being the oldest guy on the panel, and I've been in the business since 1983. And we were talking the other day, none of us have ever seen anything like this. The three of us were talking about basic materials for buildings are not available. And normally the way you do a development is you get an estimate, you start the project, you lease it to somebody, you have certainty on what things are gonna cost. And today, if roofing panels, for example, whether it's retail or industrial, they just won't quote a price. They'll put you in line. We were talking about they'll charge you to get in line, And then when your roofing materials arrive, they'll set a price for you. So it's really complicated. In the business itself, in the retail business, whether it's restaurants, shops, whatever, they can't get goods, they can't get supplies. And I think labor qualifies for supply chain these days. They really can't get people of any kind. So many people left the business. I have a good friend that operates half a dozen restaurants. And he said he was able to keep his managers, he was able to keep his top bartender, his top server, and a couple other servers came back. The entire kitchen emptied out. Anybody that did anything but the head chef job. So it's a really challenging time, and we're starting to see little bits and pieces of optimism, but it's just uncertainty times 10, and it's really complicated.
Yeah, I would add to that, Charlie, what you're talking about with the roofing materials. In addition to that, you're gonna have to make that order 9 months in advance.
Yeah.
And, that plays a lot of havoc with our schedules, and then kind of layer onto that rising interest rates, and trying to encapsulate, your risk on a project, that makes it super difficult. My supply chain issue is I recently got on a 3-hour flight at 7 a.m. in the morning, so we were all up early to get on that flight. And after they closed the door, they told us that they didn't have any coffee cups because of a supply chain issue. So, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. But yeah, it's across the industry right now. Supply chain is an absolute issue. I mean, it's kind of it's a blessing and a curse, because I do think supply chain is driving a big drive for industrial space in our market, because people are looking to have a more robust supply chain that's not dependent on international travel to get it here. So there are some benefits to it, but we're definitely dealing with a hardship at the front end.
Yeah, I think it's labor. I think to piggyback on these guys, labor is a huge issue, and I think what we're finding, you may notice, obviously there's a ton of industrial going up, and we're doing a lot of industrial. You probably see these contraptions that are on site. They look like big gray funnels with mounds of gravel and sand around them, and you're probably like wondering what's going on. Well, industrial developers and contractors are doing their own what's called a batch plant, which is basically they're making the concrete on site. And the reason they're doing that is they can't get cement truck drivers. So you just put it right on site. So it's I think labor is permeating everything. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback, but in any event, it's challenging. The other thing to piggyback on, typically when you're doing a construction loan, you need a guaranteed maximum price contract from a general contractor. And to Charlie's point, if your roofing or any other element that you would typically be included in that guaranteed maximum price contract is a floating number, you can't really pin it down. And so the lender will make an estimate, and then if it's more than the estimate, as a developer, you're writing a check. So it's challenging.
I was going to add just a quick thought, which is, in spite of all that, we have tenants that want to lease space, and we have developers that are trying to build space. We got bankers that want to finance space. So it's just a lot of hard work. You got to keep working and working and working, and the closer you can get to getting a lease signed and a construction contract guaranteed and ready to go, people are still trying to do business here because the economy is still solid.
See, that makes it also very interesting, doesn't it? I mean, you'd think that at some point it's going to stop, but it seems to keep going and going, hence, fueling the economy, right? Let's talk a little bit more about that labor issue. And George, I'm going to pick on you first on this one. So yeah, everyone knows it's really hard to hire people, even harder to keep them. This is the great resignation. What do you think can be done to help people who want to get a career in construction and project development?
We're hiring.
It's a good start.
Is hiring.
Hold the microphone higher, please.
Sorry. Close enough?
Stop the feedback.
Yeah, I think everybody is hiring right now, and it's
Maybe turn yours off.
Sorry.
it's a tough market right now to find anybody for these positions. And I think this kind of echoes on to what Mayor Woods was saying with housing. It's tough to find workforce to relocate here, so we need to have, a spectrum of housing from a beginning position to the executive positions. And it's really tough for those people to get to this market and to find affordable housing. And it's a unique position for us because that's not been our problem ever. And in my history being here of not having an affordable housing availability in the market. And so it's a unique new problem for us, and I think it's something that we need to solve soon because we live here and we're dependent on growth. And if we shut off the growth factor, it's going to be an issue for our market.
Good point. Anyone else want to say anything about labor?
Yeah, I think on the housing side, I think right now our median's going to $475,000 for a median home
Yeah.
price. And so it's not just obviously multifamily, which the mayor talked about, but on the single family side, and I think you're right, I think what attracted a lot of people to Arizona historically was affordable housing, and it's a little concerning, to be honest. And labor just for employers all the way through the construction business.
Yeah, and that's why we have a housing panel coming up next. All right. So, all right, David, you're on with this one. We have 5 minutes left, but you only have 4 minutes to answer this question. Because I have one more. Both residents and businesses think rent isn't affordable, but developers are seeing higher costs to build projects. What are your ideas to resolve the situation to benefit everyone?
Well, and I'll focus on commercial because that's what we do. But rent as a percentage of a company's overall operating expenses is in the 3 to 5% range. And I know everybody goes out and tries to get the best rent deal they can, but labor far exceeds anything to do the 3 or 5% of your operating expenses that rent is. So, where we see the market going, especially in the office side and industrial, honestly, is there's a flight to quality. And what's filling up, 100 Mill being an example, just delivers 95% leased at $50 gross rents. There's a clear flight to quality. And so I think employers are saying, look, if I'm going to go lease office space, I'm going to get it in the best building I can because guess what? I need my employees to actually come to work. So they, highly amenitized spaces. So I don't see that as being an issue. The Grove in Phoenix is the same story. They're getting $53 gross up there. They're basically all pre-leased as well. So I don't think rent is a big issue in the commercial side, honestly.
I would second that. The other thing is we've been really spoiled in Phoenix for years. Our housing has been cheap relative to the rest of the world. And what happens when you have a place that's got great employment, great education opportunities, great quality of life, all these amenities, this life that we live and love here, over time that pushes housing pricing up, up a little bit. And there's been significant jumps in a very short period of time. I'm an optimist. I believe that'll moderate and we'll get back to rational growth on rents and all that. And we're still affordable in spite of a lot of the hype in the news about it, relative to the companies that we compete, the states that we compete with, cities, countries, all of them. So relatively speaking, I think we're still in pretty good shape.
I'm going to agree with all that.
Very good. All right, last thing. It's 2022. The world's been very unpredictable. What's your bold prediction? I'm going to start with George. For coming up, what's your bold prediction?
So my bold prediction is that in a month, we are going to learn that the entire Phoenix Suns team was abducted by aliens. And it was all clones that were playing. Just kidding. I do think, kind of following on to what Dave was saying, is that employers have been trying to lure people back to the office. I think that we're going to find in 2022, early 2023, is that employees are going to want to return to the office now that their kids are back in school and they're looking for upward mobility in the company. They're looking for collaboration in the company. That there's going to be a desire to come back to the office, maybe with some flexibility for sure, but a desire to be back in the office environment.
I agree 1,000% with that. my big focus as I look at Tempe Town Lake, and you've got now South Pier, you've got all the great work that's already happened on the lake. You've got the Novus Innovation Corridor, which I spent a little bit of time thinking about. I think in 2022, 23, in this next 12-month period, the Coyotes and City of Tempe and Phoenix will come to grips, and we'll have great news on that side of Tempe Town Lake. We're not supposed to talk about that, though. But
No.
sorry.
So this panel is going to be focusing on tourism and hospitality issues, and statewide, it's a very powerful industry. You're looking at an industry that generates billions in local and federal and state taxes, all benefiting the state. We took a wallop during the pandemic, so we're slowly crawling ourselves out of that. It's getting better. We're seeing great trends coming out of this. But first and foremost, I wanted to talk about and ask Michael Martin specifically, what is the economic impact to Tempe?
So if you look at 2019, that was the peak year for tourism on a global scale. When we rounded the corner in 2020, we thought 2020 was going to be the pinnacle year. Of course, things changed with the pandemic. So we look back at 2019 as the year to try to reach again. So in that year, we had about an $880 million impact from about 4.2 million visitors to the city of Tempe. That's direct spending, not indirect, so it's higher if you count the indirect spending. But as we are trying to get through the pandemic and recover, we are actually seeing really positive numbers, not just in Tempe, but on a valley-wide and statewide level. Arizona is a natural vacation destination, as we all know. Right now, leisure is really driving the rebound much more than business travel. We're seeing some pickup again in meetings, but leisure is really driving what the rebound here in the United States, and so that's really taking place in the Sun Belt states, particularly here in Arizona. And so to give you an idea, year to date in April, Tempe's occupancy was up 30% year over year. Our ADR, average daily rate, is up 57%. Our number of rooms sold in the city is up 34%, and 110% increase in total room revenue. And that's just January through April year over year. So we are definitely seeing a rebound in Tempe.
Perfect, that's wonderful. Yeah, we're seeing quite the increase ourselves. But with all the development in Tempe, can we, and I'll open this up to all the panelists, can you speak to all the development that's happening, how that's going to impact the tourism and hospitality industry?
Sure, I'll take that. Technically not a hospitality guy, but I'll speak to the leisure part of it if you'd like. But and just give you, by way of a background, what's going on at Tempe Marketplace, which is a fairly good barometer of not just Tempe, but the entire valley of what has happened over the last couple of years. And what we're seeing today compared to 2019, let's throw 2020 out, but our traffic is up almost 20% over 2019. Sales, gross sales are up about 18% over 2019. So what it tells you is, and that's beyond our other projects around the valley, quite honestly. I mean, it varies depending on where you're at. But I believe it has a significant part of what it belongs to is all the development that's going on in Tempe. As Charlie said, there is no other place better in the entire valley and probably in the western United States than Tempe. And we're clearly seeing the benefit of that at our project here.
Absolutely. Lori, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'd just like to add on that, as a business improvement district for downtown Tempe, and just jumping on to what you said, and what we like to say around the office downtown is downtown Tempe is the place with it all. And we've really experienced an increase in foot traffic due to the development, not only in office projects, but also hotels. When I first started 8 years ago, there were 4 hotels downtown, and we're about to double that. And speaking to a retail business just the other day, they were saying that their business is now comprised, or at least has been this spring, primarily of visitors as opposed to office workers. So I think what we can expect from downtown development with the office workers is that it's going to be a new kind of experience when they come downtown. They may not come out to lunch every day, Monday through Friday, which we can see with a lot of businesses that are closed for lunch Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But when people do come to the office and they do come downtown to work, it's in a different way. They're coming to build culture, and they're gathering, and they're being creative, and they want those experiences. So they'll want to go out and have a meeting on a donut boat at Tempe Town Lake, or they'll want to go out and have a great meal at Cafe Boa, or some of the unique experiences downtown. So we see that foot traffic downtown this past spring has been the highest since 2018.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Speaking to that changing product, Michael, can you go into that a little bit and the benefits of seeing that type of increase?
Sure. So if you look at Tempe, we have close to 7,000 rooms in the city. And we have a number of them that are called select service. So think Hilton Garden Inn or Hyatt Place, Hyatt House. And then you have full service. Think of Tempe Mission Palms, the Buttes, Marriott properties. So for a very long time, we had our full service properties, 5 or 6 of them. Think of the Sheraton Embassy, Buttes, Mission Palms, and the DoubleTree. And for a long time, we had a lot of development of select service properties. And in 1999, in fact, we had a 16% increase in hotel rooms just in select service rooms alone. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with select service property. They bring a lot of value. But the difference is a select service property is mining for business in their own backyard. They're not necessarily trying to generate business from out of state. Not because they don't want to, it's because they don't have the funding and they don't have the staffing. They have to manage what they have. And they're great properties. There's nothing wrong with it. But for a very long time, we could not generate interest in Tempe to get a full service property. And then we see all this Class A development taking place. And now I think hotel investors look at Tempe very differently. So what happened, fast forward now, we have Canopy, we have the Westin, we have the Hyatt Place, Hyatt House, which is still select service, but if you look at their amenities, it's very upend. You have the AC Marriott, and you have now the Omni under construction, and we know there are a couple other properties that are looking to build that are full service. So what does that mean? That means that they're bringing full service restaurants, they're bringing more amenities like a rooftop pool and a bar. They're bringing meeting space so that we can actually generate room nights from outside the state and generate people coming to Tempe for meetings, spending their money in our restaurants downtown and at Marketplace and so forth. So the type of property that's being built in Tempe is very different than it was just 5 years ago. And that's a really good sign. Even the Vibe, which is the Best Western product, it's more of a high-end Best Western product. There's only 4 of them in the world. And the other thing to think about too is that I think developers look at Tempe as a great place to experiment. We were the first in market for the graduate hotels, first in market for Moxie, first in market for AC, first in market for Canopy, and first in market for Vibe. So that says a lot about Tempe and its business acumen, I think.
Speaking of business, a major trend that we're seeing out of the state is more business travelers coming to extend their stay and becoming a leisure traveler. Is that something that you can see in what you're offering? Anything else?
I'll say yes, because I think that is a trend that's a national trend. I mentioned Arizona as a natural place for leisure travel. So if you can work remotely, why wouldn't you do it in a place where there's wonderful weather and a pool and you can go outside and enjoy the weather and bring your family, whatever it might be. So I think that is a trend that does exist. And I talked earlier about having select service properties. That bodes well because we have, like the Residence Inn, for example, if you look at their room types, it's a suite style property, almost like an apartment. So you could do that when you're traveling to Tempe. So that type of traveler is definitely of interest because obviously they're going to spend more time in the community. They're going to be shopping at our destinations and dining in our restaurants. So it is a trend that's national, so it does happen here.
Speaking more towards signature events, like the Ironman events, are you seeing those events come back? Are they ready to come back? Are you seeing the interest for them to come back? And anybody can speak to that if you want to.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We produced the Tempe Festival of the Arts, and we produced the first one in 2 years last fall, the first weekend of December, which we had a record number of artist supply, record number of visitors, over 150,000 people over 3 days. The artists reported the highest sales that they've had in many years, and a lot of our food vendors and the bars and all of the indicators that we count to show and count for the success of the festival, we're beating even some of our highest years, 2016, 17, 18. It was gangbusters. We were super excited. We were expecting the same for spring. I think that it was not as heavily attended. I think it kind of mixed in with some of the spring training uncertainty. But with some of our other events, we know that bringing feet to the street is important to support the downtown businesses and merchants. They stay in the hotels, they eat, they shop, they visit other places in the valley. And they might even think, hey, this is a cool place to move and work. So we know that the events that we produce and the events like Ironman that bring people to Tempe give people an experience. And we have produced some new events in an effort to create that experience for people to come downtown, such as Second Sundays on Mill, which is a seasonal event, November through April. It's basically a local artisan market. We've experimented with a new event at Tempe Beach Park. Every Friday in May, we're doing Foodie Fridays, and we had so many people last Friday that there were 20 and 30 people deep in every food truck line. We had 4 food trucks. And another measurement, we count the sales of the bar, and our bar in a 4-hour period beat a Friday of Tempe Festival of the Arts, which is pretty amazing. So there are things that people are looking for. There's a lifestyle in Tempe. When they come down to Beach Park and have a great time, they're going and they're experiencing other places downtown and in Tempe. So the more events, the better.
Thank you. Can we go into more about, I lost my train of thought here, I apologize. Bringing in trends, let's talk about trends here. Do you see any major trends coming up that we should be aware of, that we should be prepared for? We'll start with David.
Well, I will say, answer the question from a little higher level, and that is, I don't think people realize how fortunate we are to have Tempe and the leadership that this community has had for a long, long time. It is, in my view, and I've been a developer here for 40 years, but Tempe has always had a vision forward so far beyond other cities. It continues to amaze me to this day. I mean, and obviously our example of, we saw what the Tempe Marketplace site was prior to us developing that. And it was truly a private-public partnership with the city. And at the time, if it wasn't for Mayor Hallman, absolutely would not have happened. All the blood, sweat, and tears went in that. And it wasn't just about our project. It was the ripple effect of that on the entire community and the neighborhoods, the hotels that are next door that you talk about, the buildings that Dave Crumwitty's built and so forth. They've all been seeing the effect of it. And certainly today with the streetcar program that's underway and the other things, the initiatives that the city of Tempe has going on, they're so forward thinking that I really, really believe this community is going to be at the front of the line for desirability in terms of corporate users coming here, people wanting to live in the city of Tempe, and certainly on the recreation front as well. And oh, by the way, all of that doesn't even count we've got the greatest university in the country as a part of the community too. So that's not a specific trend per se that your question asked, but if there are trends, it will happen here in Tempe. I really believe that. And proven by what you said about first to market operators, no question about it. That proves it right there.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think right now in the tourism industry, what we're seeing as a trend is a shorter booking window. So anybody in the audience, when you traveled 5 years ago, you probably planned about 2 or 3 months out. You knew where you were going to go. You booked your airline tickets. You booked your hotel. You had everything planned out. Now it seems as if it's a 1 or 2 week booking window. So the hotels are challenged in a way because they don't know week to week sometimes how many rooms they're going to have booked the following week. And when we talk about the labor shortage that is going on, how do you plan your staffing if you don't know how many people are going to be in your hotel the following week? So there are a lot of challenges right now. It may not think it's a big deal in terms of saying, well, you're getting business regardless of even if they book a week out. We got to get that booking window beyond a week. We got to get it back to a month or so because it helps with planning. and it helps with the projections for revenues, that type of thing. And I think it'd be healthier for travel in general, but right now, small booking window is very challenging.
Lori, anything?
I would say for downtown, I think trends, downtown is becoming more of a 24/7, 24-hour, I guess you could say, downtown. Traditionally been a college town with a pretty happening nightlife, but with so many more residential properties opening up, so many more office properties opening up, there really is a 24-hour lifespan of downtown. So whether you're offering breakfast or dinner or nightlife, shopping, it goes beyond what I call the college kid experience, what I like to refer to as regular people. So always will be an entertainment district with heavy on the dining side, but some of the concepts that are currently coming in and have signed leases are a little more sophisticated and are a little more flexible in terms of, hey, again, kind of like a mullet. I can do this during the day, and in the back, I've got my party side. So I'm covering all my bases, and we've got some really good operators. And I just wanted to share my great statistic that I dug up for today before we run out of time. Since March of 2020 through March of 2022, 81 businesses closed in the downtown district, which is about a half square mile in size. 51 businesses closed. I got it backwards. I screwed up my big moment. 51 businesses closed in that time period and 81 businesses opened. And we have 10 on deck to open before fall, this fall. So I think that really stands to the resiliency of this downtown and how it evolves and adapts. And I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of good things that are going to happen.
I'm Susie Steckner. I'm with the City of Tempe's communications team. And I'm really excited to be here with this amazing panel today. As we heard Mayor Woods discuss earlier, innovation is very much a common thread through all of Tempe, and that's certainly the case with housing in Tempe. So that's the first thing I'd like to do is talk about some of the ways that our panelists are innovating in the housing space. And everyone here is involved in some really innovative projects. And one of those projects grabbed global headlines last year, the unveiling of the 3D printed house by Habitat for Humanity, Central Arizona. So I'm going to throw this first question to Deborah. Tell us about innovating in the housing space.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here to talk further about our innovative project that we couldn't have done without the partnership with the City of Tempe and a lot of partners coming together to make it happen. But we built the very first 3D printed home in the state of Arizona, and it is here in the beautiful city of Tempe. The family has moved in. They are about ready to make their first mortgage payment on their home. And it is through this kind of technology and looking for innovative and creative collaborations that we hope to somehow make a difference, make a change in the way affordable housing is constructed and the way we view affordable housing. We have hopes that this technology will become more efficient, that will become more affordable, and we'll be able to build with less waste in the future once the technology matures a little bit. But we were grateful to be able to partner with Tempe to have this happen here and have the visibility, over 4 million views on our video across the world. And so very, very excited and honored to work with City of Tempe on this project.
That is a great video. If you have not seen it, go find it. It's amazing. Who else wants to talk about innovation?
So I will. Thank you. Thank you for the segue. We just finished the Tempe Microstates. Newtown just built 13 very small homes. We are not allowed to call them tiny homes because they are 600 square feet. But we did that on basically the corner of Rural and Apache. So in a prime location, we were able to offer 13 homeownership opportunities in Tempe. And, you know, it was being a smaller house, you know, Phoenix has done single family scattered site and apartments really well. So to kind of fill that gap in the missing middle is what we were trying to do. It's only 13, but we'll keep going. But you know, we've got to start looking at some different product types. because single-family scattered site is so expensive right now. So I think that we need to offer the residents some other types.
Again, another amazing project. Was able to tour that not too long ago with Mayor Woods and Councilwoman Kuby, and it's amazing. Steve, let me send the next question your way. Creating workforce housing is part of the conversation locally, regionally, nationally, and certainly the development panel talked about that. Talk about some of the trends that you're seeing with workforce housing.
It's very, very hard is the answer. And, you know, we kind of heard that earlier with land prices kind of going up dramatically and labor costs and supply chain issues and construction costs. It's just a very difficult thing to do today. And you know, we have a lot of groups, and a lot of them are here at the table today, that are doing a great job with affordable housing, with assistance, with some you know, government help, and you know, and there's boatloads of folks doing a great job at top of market product, for sale, for rent, knocking it out of the park on that. It's this missing middle piece that we're struggling with. The attainable or workforce housing. I try to use attainable sometimes because unfortunately workforce housing with some communities is a little bit of a bad word and or phrase. And but it's very difficult, and what at least Hololoa companies, see, I even did it right. What we've been trying to do for several years now is what I refer to as workforce housing by design. Try to work backwards in a design, backwards in a pro forma, so that you can end up with rents that fall within that 80 to 120 AMI, and hopefully everyone knows that AMI is the area median income. You take 30% of somebody's income, and that's really what should go to housing. And it moves depending on what area that person happens to want to reside in. But we try to hit that 80 to 120, and we've got 3 different products we've been rolling out. You've seen these cabana apartments. We've been doing those now for a few years, and we've got a dozen of those. But you need a 10-acre suburban site for those. We're about to roll out a product that is very much these, everyone's doing these for rent, single-family housing and single-family for rent. But they're all really expensive, $2,500, $3,500 a month, kind of, and that's not workforce housing. We're going to roll out something called Lanai Living, which is a workforce housing price point, but single-family housing for rent product. But what you want me to talk about is what we're doing here in Tempe. It's called Dwell. Dwell is an attempt to do a workforce housing by design, but in an urban location, which is really hard to do because land prices in an urban location, land prices are high, parking, the cost of parking really is challenging, construction costs, everything else we've talked about is high. The secret sauce, what we figured out with this Dwell is we found an existing office complex that's doing well and with good tenants. We've got this Farmer Studios project at 5th and Farmer. But it came with some surface parking around it and some extra land sort of around it that we could pick up that came with it. And if you could take an existing office project and turn it into mixed use, make it office and workforce housing combined, and then shared parking, share the parking between office during the day and the apartments at night. That way you've solved 2 things. You've brought down the cost of the land because you picked up the land with the office building that you've acquired and leased back to the office users. But then you reduce the parking costs by having that shared parking model. But then we figured out the design. How can you design a building that and the analogy I use with Corey and the council is that if you design a Ritz-Carlton, you get Ritz-Carlton rents. If you design a Hampton Inn, you get Hampton Inn rents, right? Hampton Inns are wonderful. I stay in Hampton Inn. I like Hampton Inns. They're fine. They're just not, they don't have the fancy amenities. They don't have the fancy finishes. And that's okay. A lot of people, and so you got to design something that looks nice, feels nice, and you're proud to live in. And so, you don't have to have fancy pool decks and party rooms and rock climbing walls and cinemas, because in downtown Tempe, we have all that. It's all around us. We've got all those amenities. And so take advantage of the amenities around you. And so that's this Dwell product. And then the final piece, the coup de grace to it, was to have workspaces in each unit and to have either workspaces built in with millwork, or to have small offices, and because we made them live work for people that can live either full-time or part-time in their unit, and have Zoom rooms and meeting rooms and casual collision spaces like a Starbucks without a barista, but have the opportunity for people. So the whole complex is really for people that want to be serious in their apartment complex, not party in their apartment complex. And because that helps you to keep the cost down also, if you don't have those fancy, expensive amenities that you're maintaining. And so that's the concept we're running with, and we're breaking ground. We've already started the abatement and the demo work and breaking ground this summer on it. But it's the first of 3. We've got 2 others now that we've acquired that we're rolling out. So we'd like to get a dozen or so of these going around the valley.
I like, what was the collision? What was the phrase you used?
Casual collision space.
Casual
yes.
collision.
Well, you
Gosh,
hear that in the technology company in Silicon Valley. Tech companies have casual collision spaces where people can sort of work together.
All right, I'm working that into my next moderating gig. Okay, so it wouldn't be a housing panel if we didn't talk about NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And I think there are so many beautiful projects in Tempe that people might be surprised to know that they're either fully affordable housing communities, or they're a blend. And Sally, I was hoping you could address that. You, of course, with Gorman, have some of those amazing properties here in Tempe. So talk about how you can achieve a lot of goals with a really beautiful project.
Sure, no, I'm happy to. And yes, Gorman is super excited that we've developed 180 units here in Tempe, 3 projects. And yes, we endure the NIMBYism quite often. And I think the first project that happened in Tempe was Gracie's Village. And those of us that have been around for a long time, over 10 years, remember those battles. And look at Gracie's Village today. I mean, it's a beautiful project right on the light rail. We get calls all the time from market rate renters wanting to live there, not knowing that it's an affordable housing project. Same goes with River East Line. And then, of course, Valor on 8th, which is right next to all the Greek village life in Tempe in those units. So people don't really differentiate the fact that these are affordable housing projects. Newtown is a tenant in our River East Line project. So I think the goal is really, really well thought out community outreach efforts with the city and with the partners, an education of what affordable housing is, who lives there. We all live there. Everybody, seems to have this kind of false image of what that really is, and this is true in all cities. But we really are pleased with how well Tempe has done in educating the overall. I mean, it's night and day now from 10 years ago as far as bringing affordable housing into this community.
Darren, can you speak to that?
Thank you. Yeah, Tempe has vision, and they don't just see things, they actually make it happen. And working with Steve on Dwell, such a new product in the downtown where people who actually work in downtown can live there. That's unheard of. The rents are so high in some places. But also Tempe's ability to work with the community. I mean, when we worked with Dwell with Steve, and then we also did a project down the street that's a 200-unit market rate product that's fully sustainable and biophilic design, but it's got 20 low-income housing units, 60 to 80 AMI, built in, mixed in units. So Tempe having the foresight to let these projects see the light of day and work with the community. We did very, very early outreach on both projects, and working with the city, working with the neighborhoods, making that happen is I mean, that's critical. It's very, very important. We all remember Gracie's, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen again, but we also want to make sure the community understands what we're building, what we're doing, what our clients are doing. And I think those two products are actually on a similar timeline we're going to see go in. So, workforce housing and affordable housing in downtown Tempe. No one would have thought that ever was going to happen, and it's happening now with the neighbors, with the city council, planning staff, everyone involved. It's very helpful.
Stephanie, I'm going to throw the next one to you. As we all know, Tempe is landlocked, and there are challenges with maximizing available land. Obviously, the project that you referenced earlier is a great illustration of that. But, talk to us a little bit about how we can maximize the land that is here.
We've got to get creative. We really have to get creative, because this was, and I can see the picture over my shoulder is our development, and so perfect timing. We can't just continue to build the same thing we've always built. We also need to educate the public on how much infill development costs, because we got a lot of pushback on price per square foot of our development. But infill development is expensive. That's why big builders don't do it. And so we've got to be creative, we've got to be flexible, we've got to look at some different product types, we've got to look at some modular building. With the cost of construction right now, our lumber package went up $40,000 overnight, and we were ecstatic that we got all the lumber at the same time. There were a few bottles popping that day when we got the entire lumber package. But we have another project coming up in Tempe soon at the 101 and the Apache Park and Ride, and we're going to do townhomes and a mix of bedrooms. We typically buy and sell single-family scattered site houses. The fastest house sold is a 2-bedroom, which is surprising. Surprised most of us. So we need to have that mix of types too. So we're going to offer 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and then a single-level kind of studio apartment or studio home on the street. So we're even mixing the product types in our next development, and the bedroom sizes and the size of the condo. And we want to support families, we want to support seniors, we want to support young people trying to build wealth, and also that are traumatized by the rental market. I have a young daughter that's traumatized by the rental market, and every year at lease signing, she's has anxiety, and so we see a lot more younger people buying too. But we've got to offer the product type that they can buy. They can't buy a 3-bedroom, single-family scattered site house. So I would say overall, it's creativity.
So I mentioned this before, but somebody in the audience said it with a question earlier, air rights. And that's really what, when you boil it all down, that's what we're doing with Dwell, is that we're taking the air rights on the parking lot and the extra land that's around this office building, and we're building workforce housing on that. And that's what we're doing with the other 2 properties that we've now acquired. One is an office building, one's a retail. But you take an existing commercial asset that has, frankly, heat sink, asphalt parking lots around it, and you put then housing on that and share the parking. It densifies the urban fabric. It eliminates that awful heat sink parking lot, and you put housing on that is a way of getting to the land problem. And I think that's what we're going to have to do in North Tempe, because we just don't have a lot of land. And if you try to scrape that good commercial use and put residential, you've paid a lot of money for that dirt, and you can't then get to anything that's affordable.
And I think a really big part of the creativity is what Tempe is doing too. It's collaboration with the developers. So it's a lot of what Gorman does done in Tempe and in other cities is the public-private partnership, where the municipality will bring the land, And then through a ground lease, we're able to come in and make the project financially feasible because we've got that land being brought to the table, which is critical. I mean, we're in City of Phoenix right now, we're redeveloping 577 units next to St. Luke's Hospital that was obsolete public housing and turning it into 1,100 mixed income housing. So it'll be everything from very low 30% AMI to market rate. So with those types of partnerships, you can really do a lot in bringing more housing to the communities.
We did something similar through the city of Tempe as well. We had a parcel 1.01 acres, and for Habitat, typically you see a single-family detached home, single-family home, and we were able to work with the city and work with the architects, and we built 18 three-story townhomes on that parcel, and absolutely stunning development on a very small piece of property, with the help of the city to get it through permitting and zoning and all of that. But our component of what we bring is utilizing volunteers to do the majority of labor on our homes, and that was a little tricky for 3 stories. So a little dangerous too. And so in our case, what we did was we used our volunteers that we've done multiple times on 2-story homes, and we had the 3rd story subcontracted out. So it was a way for us to think a little bit differently, change our ways just a little bit in order to be able to get max use and max density in that small parcel of land. So exactly, public-private partnership was very, very beneficial to the community, and 18 homeowners. There's 17 different countries represented in that development of homeowners.
And just quickly, I don't think we can say enough about Hometown for All. That was such a game changer. The money is there. The more development happens, the bigger the development it is, the more money is going into the fund. And it's not just going into a fund. A lot of cities across the country put money into funds and they say, we're going to build something with this someday, and they don't do it. Tempe actually does it. They're actually buying properties, they're making housing happen, affordable housing happen, and they're actually utilizing that money. So it was a game changer because we represent developers for affordable, we represent developers for market rate, and every market rate product, high-rise in the downtown, we were always asked to do some type of affordable housing, and it's virtually impossible when that's not what you do. This allows that to happen. 50% of your building permit fees are going into, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and I think they're going to see a very large infusion in the next year, 2 years, with some of the projects that are coming into downtown.
Well, that was the perfect segue to my last question, which is, for you, Darren, but then any of you, is what more can cities, regions, states do to encourage housing, of all stripes? Tell us what is needed from government.
Well, I think, my perspective, I do entitlements. So, easing the entitlement process for affordable housing projects, affordable workforce housing projects, and market rate products, but not easing that to the extent that the recent legislation tried to ease it, where they just opened the door and said, whatever you want to do, just do it. That's a little much. But, the more that we can see design review say, okay, we're not going to put gold on this building. We're going to put products and materials that look really awesome, but still aren't gold plated or made of gold. It can still look cool with unique materials, but still cost less, so it actually makes money and can be affordable as well. So those are my 2 cents.
And very good ones, I agree with. Also, density boosts for bringing affordable housing in. And as Pat McNamara brought up, parking variances. A lot of the projects that when we're serving permanent supportive housing residents, they don't have the car ownerships. We've got all the statistics that back that up. So that's a big part of it as well, as having less parking and such.
We couldn't agree any more with what has already been said in terms of parking. A lot of our families are lucky to have 1 car, and we have to provide parking for 2 cars plus 2 visitors, which is a little challenging. But we're an apolitical organization, but the White House has put out a pretty good plan, we think, from the start. If we could have some backing for that, some of the proposals that are out there in terms of all ranges of affordable, attainable housing and everything in between. We just focusing on that. It should, we envision a world where everyone has a decent place to live, and it would sure be nice to have that support across the country.
So when anybody asks me this question, it always ends up with land and money. Just getting down to the brass tacks, land and money. Because we can't buy the land because it's instantly not an affordable homeownership to buy the land. But also with the costs of things right now, we have to go back to our funders for more money just to get the project done. 100% on the parking. The two developments that we have developed and now we are going to develop are on light rail. That there aren't people that have cars. Microstates, we have some 2-family households that have 1 car. Most do. So the parking is 100%. Also, design review would be great if they could get on board with affordable housing. No, we're not going to be able to afford colored concrete. And so, I think it's just education of the public and city planners and staff about what it actually means to develop affordable housing.
Yeah, I agree.
Quick 1-minute
Yes,
answer.
sure.
And
I agree with
Q&A.
everything that's been said already. On the parking, North Tempe has such an incredible walkability score for most of the sites because of the new streetcar and light rail and how bikeable, walkable. And so we just don't need as much parking, frankly, and there just needs to be some analysis of that on a project-by-project basis. But shared parking, look at the day-night shared parking. If you can do mixed-use projects, that makes a big difference. But the other thing I would say is inclusionary zoning. I know that came up in one of the earlier panels, but and I know it's going to get looked at by the governors pushing it with the legislature. But on some of the commercial parcels, commercial zoning, if by right you can have the opportunity to do multifamily, but then still have the city do design review, so you can take a look at what it's going to look like and feel like, so the neighborhood that might be behind that commercial still is protected, and that's very important. So the height, the density, but inclusionary zoning would make a big difference.
And I'd like to thank all our amazing panelists from tonight, and please, big thank you goes out to our sponsors, Mortenson, 100 Mill, Smart Rent, and thank you Harkins Theaters for hosting us, and thanks most of all to the City of Tempe and Mayor Corey Woods. What an amazing leader. Thank you all for coming.